We are continuing a lesson that we began last week. This is a series on the lamp of the body. And this is coming from really from what Christ says in Luke and also what he says in Matthew. And there can be, as we have pointed out before, there can be some difficult sayings that are in the Bible. Not everything is difficult. Some things are extraordinarily clear. You cannot make it more clear. Other things, however, take a little more effort. But the Bible will help you to understand the harder parts. It will. Just because something may be a mystery over here doesn't mean it's perpetually a mystery. Eventually, you can find out. Now, I've said that, but there is one thing you cannot know. None of us can know. None of us can know when Christ returns. That is a mystery. That also, we have been given the assurance you cannot know that until it's here. Then it'll be very obvious. But that has been made clear to us that you cannot know that day. But let's discuss the lamp of the body. So we go to Luke chapter 11, beginning verse 34. Now last week we read these verses, but we need to read them again to get up to speed. We have to. Now we're not going to repeat everything by way of introduction that we spoke about last week. If you missed that, it is posted online. You can look up last week's lesson very, very easily. As beginning of, it would be the lamp of the body, part 1. This is part 2. So we read now Luke chapter 11, beginning in verse 34. The lamp of the body is the eye. Therefore, when your eye is good, your whole body also is full of light. But when your eye is bad, your body also is full of darkness. Therefore, take heed of that light which is in you, that the light which is in you is not darkness. And we talked about that word take heed. That means there's an obligation. That means there's something you're in control of in this. And that this cannot be literally, physically seeing. This has to be something else. Verse 36, if then your whole body is full of light, having no part dark, the whole body will be full of light, as when the bright shining of a lamp gives you light. That's kind of a difficult saying in this. Now we go to Matthew chapter 6, 22 and 23. Very similar, but also there are some differences. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? All right, so as we spoke last week, now last week we gave proofs concerning this. And once again, you can go look at that. We gave proofs, but this cannot mean a literal physical eye. It cannot mean that. It cannot mean the physical state of sight or of blindness. It cannot mean that. And we look at Luke 11 verse 35, therefore take heed that the light which is in you is not darkness. And we ask the question, how can light be darkness? And take heed, that does imply there's control over this. And you are in control over it. To take heed of something means you've got to do it. There's a warning here. And you take heed to the warning in all this. Now, if this saying means literal physical sight, then the blind cannot keep Christ's word. It's that simple. Christ says this, and the blind would not be able to keep this word at all. If it was physical sight, the blind have no light and could not possibly ever hope to have that light. They could take heed of nothing. So it can't mean that. It must have a different meaning. And it just means perception of another type. And this is using the heart, the will, and your soul. This is the real, actual you, not your body. It's the one that resides, the you inside your body, that we are discussing in this. Now, what is this perception? This is perception of truth and recognizing truth, not rejecting it. This is purity and desiring purity. This is rational thought. This is proper moral judgment. That is light indeed. Now, we see that you are certain to see, therefore take heed that the light which is in you is not darkness. All right, you are certain to see the truth of a matter. Someone who does not allow that light to be darkness, they are seeing the truth of the matter. Ignorance can masquerade as knowledge. That would be ignorance masquerading as knowledge. Well, that would be darkness in all this. The irrational is done without consideration. That would be darkness. Now, you are certain you see the truth of a matter can also mean darkness in what way? That you think you know, but you don't really know. You think you know what the truth may be in something, and you don't really know the truth. Now, we will show by way of examples. So, Luke 11:35, what you think and believe can be wrong. How you perceive the world can be wrong. Understand that. And this would be the light you think you're taking in is in fact darkness. When you think and you believe something, but it's wrong. When you perceive the world in a certain way, but it's wrong. That is when the light in you is darkness, and there is no light in you. And we're going to show, once again, examples. So here we have this twisted perception of reality. This would be darkness, and we see this among those of Thessalonica. Some of them are Jews. Some of them are just wicked men that they have brought along with them. And we see these words. Acts 17 and verse 6, but when they did not find them, so that would be these wicked men, they are looking for Paul and his companions. That's who they're looking for. When they didn't find them, they dragged Jason. Now, Jason is a local man, but he's now a follower of Christ. They dragged Jason and some brethren to the rulers of the city, crying out, these who have, look at this, turned the world upside down have come here too. Now, this is believing you know the way the world ought to be. Are they turning the world upside down, or are they making it right? Which is it? Which is it? They see it in their perception, which is twisted. They are seeing the world as being turned upside down by these men. Now, I want you to see what they're admitting to in all this. One is that Christ has been successful. That's what they're saying. They wouldn't want to say that, but that's what they're admitting. They're admitting that Christ is successful, that His word going out has an effect. That what occurred in Judea and Galatia in Judea, what occurred over there in Jerusalem and with His crucifixion and with the followers of Him, of course, saying that He resurrected, and the message of Christ, the message of Jesus of Nazareth going out, what they're saying is that teaching does have an effect. And in fact, it's turning the world upside down. That's what they're saying. And that Christ is unlike anybody else. Because I doubt they have said that about anybody else coming to their town. I doubt it. I doubt that anybody has had that kind of effect, any teaching has that kind of effect, because it's the effect of light over darkness. They want to stop the truth. They want to keep the world in darkness. That's what they're saying. They will fight and do whatever they need to do to keep the world in darkness. That is, in fact, what they are admitting to. Now, we noticed this verse last week. We want to bring it in again, Isaiah 5:20, and this concerns that of switching things up. Switching things around and turning the world upside down. You can think, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. They've turned everything upside down. What was good? No, that's bad. What's actually good is bad. Now, what was thought is bad, now that's good. Seen any of that recently? I see a lot of that. I see a lot of that. Same thing concerning darkness for light. No, that's not darkness, that's light. And what is truly light? No, that's actually ignorance, that's darkness. Seen any of that? Yes. See a lot of that. Who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter? I mean, what was bitter? Oh no, that's sweet. Don't pay attention to your senses. Don't pay attention to what you know. Pay attention to what you're being told. All right, that's what it comes down to. Bitter, no, bitter is now sweet. Sweet, now that's bitter. That is, in fact, bitter. Now, we go to our second example, and this would be the darkness of idolatry. And this, what we're looking at this morning is that of this total darkness, not part dark as Jesus describes in one of the verses, but it's that the light which is in you is not darkness. This is what you think to be light, but there's no light in it at all. And here we have the darkness of idolatry. So we go back to Isaiah 44 and beginning in verse 14, and this is talking about the absurdity of idolatry, because it is. And that the idolater isn't even considering how ridiculous their action is, not really putting it into perspective to come to understand this really is a stupid idea. What I'm doing doesn't even make sense. Now, we'll get to that in just a second, but I want us to look at Acts chapter 17 very quickly. Acts chapter 17, and this would be Paul in Athens, and he speaks to them, and this would be to the Athenians. It's the Stoic philosophers and the Epicurean philosophers there on Mars Hill. They want to know what he's saying. They want to know what he's teaching. And he says this, verse 24, God who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands. All right, now that'd be news to them. That'd be news because they're all about making temples and making statues representing their gods. They're always doing that. Their city was full of that. Exactly as Paul finds when he gets to Athens. Verse 25, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings. No one is disagreeing with him on that. No, nobody. They would agree that deity, though they would disagree by name and who that is, that deity created mankind. That was a belief of theirs. So that, verse 27, they should seek the Lord in the hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. Now, what does he say up here? He says, God made heaven and earth. What are you going to make for him that he needs? What are you going to make? You can't make anything that he needs, that he has to have. He made everything. If he wanted that, whatever it was, he would speak it into existence. And by the trillions, he could do it. He doesn't need us making these temples. He doesn't need us. And all of this belongs to him anyway. Now, we come back to Isaiah 44 and this ridiculous notion that is part of the idolater's belief, of the idolater's faith. And it never makes any sense. But it doesn't matter to the idolater. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. He cuts down cedars for himself and takes the cypress and the oak. He secures it for himself among the trees of the forest. He plants a pine, and the rain nourishes it. Then it shall be for a man to burn. For he will take some of it and warm himself. Yes, he kindles it and bakes bread. Indeed, he makes a god and worships it. He makes it a carved image and falls down to it. Already this doesn't make sense. But it continues on. He burns half of it in the fire. With this half he eats meat. He roasts a roast and is satisfied. He even warms himself and says, "Ah, I am warm. I have seen the fire." And the rest of it he makes into a god. His carved image. He falls down before it and worships it, prays to it, and says, "Deliver me, for you are my God." This makes no sense, and we'll look at this in a little detail. This makes no sense. They do not know nor understand, for he has shut their eyes so that they cannot see, and their hearts so that they cannot understand. Who's the he? That is God. And we're going to look at that a little bit more concerning all this. And no one considers in his heart. Now notice what we just read. He says, He's shut their eyes so they can't see, and their hearts so they cannot understand. And then over here says, no one considers in his heart. Or they weren't considering in their heart. He gave them up to idolatry. He gave them up to these things. They're not considering, nor is there knowledge, nor understanding to say, I have burned half of it in the fire. Yes, I have also baked bread on its coals. I have roasted meat and eaten it. And shall I make the rest of it an abomination? Shall I fall down before a block of wood? So if this was such a sacred thing, why'd you cut it down anyway? If this was such a sacred thing, why'd you burn half of it? Why'd you do that? If this was such a sacred thing, it should be hands off. You don't touch that thing. But notice, what is being admitted by the action, not by what they're thinking necessarily, but their action. That the tree's not sacred anyway. The tree's not sacred. That the tree cannot be God or anything beyond a tree. All right, the tree's not sacred. The tree can't be a God. All is based on desire. What is the desire? First is warmth, and then cooking, and then a God to worship. Protect me. All right, well, the God couldn't protect itself from your fire, from you cutting it down. God had no ability to do that whatsoever. You've been doing this, and in all of this, you're basically, by way of practice, by way of what you did, what this idolater did, is say that none of this matters anyway. None of it really matters beyond my desires. Okay, so practicality actually shifts to nonsense. Well, how is that? Because he cuts down the tree. All right, that's good. All right, what you going to do with it? Well, he's going to build a fire. Well, that's necessary. He's going to cook. Well, that is very necessary. Okay, and then he's going to build a God. Or, well, that just went over to the nonsense. You have the practicality. Now there's the nonsense that it shifts into, and that there is no rational thought here beyond my desires. This what it comes down to. No rational thought beyond my desires. And it all goes, as far as this person, this idolater is concerned, this is all very, very practical. It makes perfect sense, but there's no sense to it at all. I've talked about this on occasion. I'm going to bring it up again today. That in Iceland, they're building, and this goes to show you the whole nonsense of idolatry. They are building a temple to Odin and to Thor and all the other Norse gods. All right, they're doing that. So they're building, it's in Reykjavik is where it is. And they're building that temple, and it was asked, okay, those of the past who worshiped Odin, they sacrificed pigs. Are you guys going to be sacrificing pigs in your temple? And the answer is, well, no, we're not. Well, okay, isn't it part of worshiping Odin that you sacrifice pigs? Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not what they desire. And honestly, the whole motive for doing such a thing, and we can see it right here, the whole motive for doing such a thing is just what I desire. That's it. There's no other motive involved. It's just what I desire to do. And it doesn't matter to those in Iceland, it doesn't matter how Odin was worshipped in the past. They're not going to do it today because it would be highly frowned on that you're taking pigs and you're slaughtering them or you're sacrificing them. That means killing them in your temple. That'd be highly frowned upon. And so they're not going to do it. And matter of fact, they went so much as to say, we are really atheists. We don't really believe in any God whatsoever. Then why are you doing this? This has gone from stupid to even more stupid. What are you even doing this for? It would be because that's what we want to do. It doesn't matter if it makes no sense. That's what we want to do, which describes idolatry. Could that image carved by the fire save that idolater from anything? Nope. The only way that could be of any help is to some problem come around, use that chunk of wood to help solve that problem. As in, here comes a bear, you throw the wood at the bear. All right, that'd be about it. That the wood could not help the idolater any way, shape, or form. None at all. But somehow it makes complete sense. That's called darkness. That's called darkness. When the nonsensical seems right, something's wrong. There is no light involved in this. It's time to shine some light on it. Now, Romans 1:22, we have these words, professing to be wise, they became fools. They think they're wise. They think they got it. They've got everything in hand. They know everything they need to know. Professing to be wise, they are the intellectuals. They are the great thinkers. They are the ones that we can solve whatever problem is around. We have the answers to everything there is to ask. Professing to be wise, they became fools. They were fools. They were fools. There's nothing wise about them. There's no light actually being emanated off of them, and they're not taking it in either. They're just absolute darkness. But we come to this, and this is putting us back to what Isaiah 44 was saying, that he closed their eyes and their hearts. Their hearts were kept from him. But we look at this. This is Isaiah as well, but Jesus is saying it here in Matthew 13, 14 and verse 15. And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will see and not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull. Their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed. They're the ones involved in this. Now don't think that they're, okay, so they closed their eyes, but their ears, they didn't have anything to do with that, or their hearts, they didn't have anything to do with that. Yes, they're involved in all of it. All of it. Their hearts have grown dull. What does that mean? They're not interested. They don't care. They have better things to do. They will have nothing to do with it. It's just grown dull. Ho hum, how absolutely dull. I want something more exciting. Well, your salvation is worth some time. It's worth your life. And obedience to God is worth your life in this world and in eternity. It's worth all of that because He is your Creator. Now, they close their eyes, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn so that I should heal them. Notice, all they had to do was open their eyes and they would hear, open their eyes and they would understand, open their eyes and they would turn. It's all in their control. Every bit of it is in their control. They've got it. They just won't do it. And Isaiah prophesied concerning them. And of course, this is this is showing up pretty early in the book of Isaiah with this prophecy in Isaiah chapter 6, as a matter of fact. And that here is this prophecy concerning people's reception of the gospel of Christ. People's reception of Christ Himself. Now we go to our third example, and this is the complete darkness of rebellion. We had the darkness of idolatry. Now we have the darkness of rebellion. And it's just as absurd, just as ridiculous, just as irrational as the idolater. And we have this. We just read the first 6 verses of Psalm 2. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? All right. So it's discussing here, it's taking note that you have nations raging, that would be the Gentiles, under the Hebrew language, which Psalm 2 is written in Hebrew, under Hebrew language, that means the Gentiles. Why do the Gentiles rage? Then, and the people plot a vain thing. The people, in a Hebrew's text, people would mean Jews, the Jewish nation. People were called, Jews were called people or the people, and nations, the nations are the Gentiles. All right. So why are the Gentiles raging, and why are the Jews plotting a vain thing? Why are they doing this? And verse 2, the kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against His anointed, saying. All right, so you have kings, you have rulers, they're coming together, they're taking counsel together, they're making plans, and it's against Jehovah and His Christ, His Messiah. This is Psalm 2 now. Psalm 2 is a prophecy of what's going to happen. Did Jew and Gentile join forces against Christ? Yes. You have the Sanhedrin court, that's Jews, using Pilate. Well, he's a Roman governor. All right? And you have Rome having to come in and, under Roman authority, has to come in and say whether they can execute somebody or not. And he allows that to happen. And they are taking counsel together. You have someone like Pilate and Herod, who hated each other until this point. Until this point, they started this mutual admiration society with each other, that they now admired each other, going against Christ. All right, now you have the kings and the rulers doing this. Those are the most powerful people. The most powerful people are the ones doing this. And they say this, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. Here's the motivation. And we'll look in just a bit at what they're actually admitting to. But this is their motive. Let's break their bonds. Let's cast away their cords from us. That is the intent. That's what's underneath it all. Now we get what's happening up in heaven. All right, that's what's happening among men. Next 3 verses. What about the one who's up in heaven? What about him? He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall hold them in derision. Then He shall speak to them in His wrath and distress them in His deep displeasure. And He says the following, yet I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion. They wanted to stop it, and you can't stop it. They thought they could defeat God, and you can't. How do you do that? How could you possibly do that? Well, you can't. All right, so what are they admitting? They are admitting the following. One, they're recognizing Jehovah is God. They're recognizing that. They're also recognizing that Christ is sent from Jehovah. They recognize that. They know that. That's Scripture. That's what they've been taught. And understand, they have that knowledge. Whether they're using that knowledge in the proper way or not, they have that knowledge. They are saying Jehovah is God. They're not trying to cast somebody else's cords away from them, of Baal. It's nor any other, not Astra or any other type of idol that they are trying to cast away. They recognize Jehovah is God. Christ is sent from Jehovah, and Jehovah and Christ have laws over them, over us. That Jehovah and Christ let us cast their bonds from us. Let us destroy it. Be rid of it. And they are admitting they're under laws. That's the motive. The motive is to get rid of them. And they're also admitting we can defeat God. This is where it really becomes ridiculous, because you can't. We don't want Jehovah or His plans. And this is all desire over rational thought. Exactly as we saw concerning that idolater. This is desire over rational thought. This is following temptation, following some sort of lie, that somehow it's okay if we just change reality in our head. That doesn't change anything other than what's in your head. That's it. There's an absurdity in this of acknowledging Him as God while plotting to be rid of Him. That's absurd. That's an absurd notion. And that's exactly what they were doing. You think anything's changed for today? I can tell you no. I can tell you right now, there are atheists. I can't answer for all of them by no means, but there are atheists that underneath their skin, deep in their head, they know there's a God. They know it. They just wish it weren't true. They make another reality. Well, you cannot escape reality. That somehow in their head they can have secular things, work on secular things, and they just can do them beautifully. But when it comes to spiritual things, they just throw a rational mind out the window at that point. They just toss it right out because they don't want His laws over them. That's what it comes down to. Acknowledging Him while wanting to be rid of Him. Well, if Jehovah is God and the Christ is sent by Him, what can you possibly do to defeat Him? What can you possibly do? And those words of derision from Him who sits in the heavens, those words that He says, "Yet I have set my King on my holy hill of Zion." You didn't stop it. Do all the raging, do all the fuming, do all this plotting, do all of whatever you think you've got to do, but you can't stop it. You cannot stop it. Now this is called darkness. Darkness is this irrationality. Darkness is where you're not thinking straight. Something has entered in and muddled your thinking. And I would suggest Satan's got a hand in it. And people will willingly follow him. They do it all the time. They will willingly follow what is truly an absurd path that's going to take them right to their own destruction, where they're not considering, they're not thinking, they don't take a moment to try to put the pieces together. They are just going full-fledged, running into darkness. Where does it head? Where does it head? It heads into condemnation. It heads into, with God trying to help us every step of the way. If we take darkness, there's only hell at the end of that. Now, we come back to these words, Luke 11:35, "Therefore take heed that the light which is in you is not darkness." Once again, ignorance can masquerade as knowledge. Can do it. That we can take our own ignorance and think, well, that's just the way life is. Well, maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you have something flawed and you can be 180 degrees off. You're completely wrong. And what we have seen from the verses we have looked at today, that people can be completely wrong. And so we look at this. This darkness, understand that what you think and believe can be wrong. But what God gives us, that's light. That's never wrong. What God gives us is, there's no flaw in that. None at all. There is light. That how you perceive the world can be wrong. And if the light in you is darkness, there is a problem, but it's not one that you can't solve. Because what did Christ repeat from Isaiah chapter 6 and Matthew chapter 13? Lest they open their eyes. You can do that. You can do that. He doesn't mean physically open physical eyes and now see the world around you. He's talking about looking at things from a matter of truth, looking at things at how they truly are, and what God is trying to teach us in all of this. And all of this concerns that lamp of the body, which you are in full control. You're in full control of that. It's how you perceive or desire to perceive, even if it's completely illogical, irrational nonsense. But what God gives us is provable. What God gives us is on absolutely solid ground, exactly as Christ stated. He who hears these sayings of mine and does them is like a wise builder who built his house on the rock. It is solid for life. That house is not coming down. That is basically building your life on the truth of Christ and His words. He who hears these things of mine and does them. He who hears these things of mine and does not do them is like a foolish builder. Well, you heard his words, doesn't account for anything, but you didn't do them. That doesn't account for anything. You did not do them. What was the point of him saying them? So you could ignore them? What was the point? So that you will commit yourself to it. This morning, we are here by the grace of God. We have today, by the grace of God, another opportunity by the grace of God. Everything given to us is from Him. He gives every good and perfect gift. Every spiritual blessing comes through Christ, and He offers those to us now. Now is the time that we have. We look at the words. Do you have faith in God? Do you have faith in God? If you have faith in God, then you will learn from His words and apply them. You will. So we are to hear His words, have faith in those words and faith in Him, and they lead us to repenting of sins, turning away from those, confessing faith that Jesus is the Christ, and we are to be baptized. It's believer's baptism, understanding exactly what you're being baptized for. You're being baptized for the remission of sins. You're being baptized into His kingdom. You have to understand that. And that is taught time and time and time again throughout the New Testament. And there, being raised to newness of life from baptism, being raised to newness of life to live for Him, to live conscientiously, learning, growing, serving. And it's these things we are to do. This morning, if you need to respond to the invitation, we ask that you come as we stand and sing.